Hello everyone! Today we'll be talking about the home clothing. I'll show you how to make a very nice warm dressing gown with the long one-piece sleeves, shawl collar and a wrap over. Do you remember the measurements we need to sew without a pattern? The width of the back? We need to measure it this way. Height of the bust, waist and hips. You should also know the length of the item, but we'll make it as long as the fabric allows. Let's start working. Today Natalie will be my customer and we'll make a dressing gown for her. Watch how I measure the width of the back. It's 44 centimeters. This is how you should measure it when sewing without a pattern. I'll write all the measurements down. The bust is 105 centimeters. The waist 86 centimeters. You can see that it's not the precise measurement because I want a dressing gown to be wide. Now let's measure the hips. I want the dressing gown to be absolutely loose here, so I'll write down 112 centimeters. I remind you that I write down just 1/2 of all the measurements. Now I need to measure the height of the bust. I measured from the shoulder seam 29 centimeters. I'll write it down. Now I let Natalie go. I'll ask her to come back to try the dressing gown on later. These are all the measurements I need: the width of the back, bust, waist, hips, and height of the bust. I've written down just 1/2 of all the measurements but one, the height of the bust. I remind you that we're making a dressing gown with a wrap over, shawl collar, one-piece sleeve, waistband, and a tuck. I want you to understand that you can make a dress using the same technique. Take the jersey fabric, add the buttons, and you'll get a very nice autumn dress. I don't really need this measurement. I can even design it by sight, but I'll show you how to measure the length of the back. You need to measure the space between the 7th neck bone and the waistline, 40 centimeters. I'll write it down. Natalie, you can go. Let's start designing. I'm drawing the center back. This point marks the 7th neck bone. I'll design the rest of the item from this point. Now I measure 7.5 centimeters and put a mark here. You may need more or less 7 or 8 centimeters, depending on your sizes. The depth is 3 centimeters. Now I'm drawing the neckline. This is my new starting point. Here it is. Now I measure 40 centimeters down from it. It's the length of the back I've just measured. This is the waistline. I divide this space in half and put a mark on 20 centimeters. This is the bust. I also measure 18 centimeters down from the waistline and draw the hip line. 18 centimeters are enough for the medium height. You may need from 17 to 21 centimeter. Now I'll draw the bottom. I haven't measured the length of the item because I'll make it as long as the fabric allows. I make a center back a bit curved at the waistline. Now I need to find 1/4 of the following measurement: bust, waist, and hips. Now I need to mark these measurements on the lines. I'm making a dressing gown, so I'll add 1 centimeter to each measurement for the fitting ease. (27.5 centimeters here. I also take into consideration that the fabric doesn't stretch. 22.5 centimeters here, 28 centimeters here. Now have a look at these 3 points. It's obvious that we can't draw such line. I draw it this way, making it look good. It's up to you what to do next. You can either leave it this way or make a tuck here. I want to make a tuck. Remember that the tucks don't cross the hip line. I draw it this way. You don't have to make the tuck, especially if you use the soft fabric. I also need to draw a line here, making it a bit wider towards the bottom. If I make it too tight, it would open each time I sit down. Try to make the side seam look natural. Have a look at me. Of course, I'm not the best example, but even I need a curved side seam. Once again, draw a naturally curved line and then decide if you want to leave an item this way or make a tuck. The center back should also be a bit curved. Your back is not absolutely straight. You can make it more or less curved, it depends on your body. I'm just showing you the technique. Do not forget about the width of the back, 22 centimeters. Now I need to draw a bias line here. This place should be 2 or 3 centimeters wide depending on the sleeve you want to make. I draw it this way. Here you should draw a right angle. Do you remember how to make a one-piece sleeve? If I start it here, it will look like a bag. I make this line longer, for about 20 centimeters. Now I start drawing a sleeve, a bit above the waistline. Here you can see a one-piece sleeve. I would make it a bit narrower. You can make such sleeve, or even a wider one. I've decided to make it a bit narrower because I want Natalie to feel comfortable in it. Let's start cutting. Do not forget to add 5 mm for a seam on the neckline. I also add 1 centimeter to the side. What is good about this technique is that I don't need any measurements when designing the front. Do not forget that I've made a bit curved line on the center back. The back is ready. Let's start making the front. Let me tell you why I've put the cutout back this way. It was the only way to place the bottom. Don't think too long. The bottoms of the front and of the back match. What should I do next? I need to raise the shoulder for about 1.5–2 centimeters. I've also left some space for a shawl collar here. And here for a wrap over. I'll draw the center back now. Is the center front at the same time? You shouldn't do anything not knowing where the center back and the center front are. This is the center front. It's absolutely the same as the center back. I raise this point for about 1.5 centimeters and draw a sleeve. This is the point from which I'll be designing the shawl collar. I draw a right angle here and make this line about 10 centimeters long. This is the beginning of a shawl collar. I don't need a fold here. I make a notch on the waistline on all the 4 layers of fabric. This seam is absolutely the same in all the details. The center front, the bottom of the sleeve, side seam, and the bottom are the same. Now I'll draw a collar. I think I'll make it about 8 centimeters wide. This is the waistline. Now I need to connect the waistline with this point. It will be a shawl collar. I draw it this way. I start cutting from the waistline. I add about 7 millimeters for a seam here. I don't need to add anything here. I cut along the edge. I'll explain why. I've started cutting with an addition for a seam and then realized that I've already added some here. Do not forget to make a notch. You should always make it in a one-piece sleeve. This tag will also be at the front. There is no tuck on the chest, but there is a waist one. This is the waistline. I'll draw a tuck here too. Now I put the front aside and continue working with the back. Today I've showed you the designing and cutting. Next time I'll tag the item and Natalie will try it on. That's all for today. Be different. My name is Paukšte Irina. Subscribe to my channel. Goodbye.